this is otherwise state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Wrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show. Welcome back to the Potentially Dangerous podcast. We're doing this through Be Live TV, so we're streaming this live on Facebook tonight. This is, of course, episode 88, and as Eric wanted me to point out, this is brought to you by Drake Ayala, the Cadet 88-pound freestyle champion there down in Iowa City West. So I am joined by Eric Schares. How you doing tonight, Eric?
Pretty good. I guess I didn't mess up too bad 2 weeks ago when you guys had me on, so you brought me back, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I told everyone, at least in our group, that I enjoyed story time with Schares and Mr. Ryder.
Got lots of stories for you, lots more of them.
So, I mean, what was it like? You've been gone for a while. You got to come back and just kind of shoot the shoot, you know, as they say. I mean, what was it like being gone and being able to come back and just kind of just talking with a couple Bosco guys talking?
It was nice taking a little break there. You know, it gets kind of, long season, whatnot. We're not even wrestling. I can't imagine it'd be like wrestling that long. But, yeah, it was nice having a different voice on there, asking him some questions that, you know, I've been around Mac just as long as anyone listening to this. And that was some stuff I hadn't even heard, so it was kind of nice to get a different perspective on some stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We got some stuff to get into tonight. Just to kind of get out of the way, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at IA Wrestle. Follow us individually. He's at Eric Schares, speed check, pretty easy to remember if you want to follow us on social media. A lot of stuff happened this last week. We did our podcast right before the National High School Federation changed some rules here for us. So the two biggest things that happened in these rule changes, and they've kind of been discussed other places, but now they're allowing a different uniform change, no longer just singlets. They're allowing compression wrestling shorts, quote unquote, not fight shorts. But so just kind of taken off with just the uniform change. Eric, what do you think about this new rule?
I actually love everything about that part of the rule. Speaking from personal experience, a lot of times you get maybe some basketball players, other people making fun of you for what this singlet looks like and whatnot. So I know there's a lot of people out there saying, this is only going to get one or two more people to go out for wrestling. Maybe it's not a big deal. And it's like, well, if it gets one or two more, what's the problem? Why is that ever a bad thing? I don't see any real negatives to this. It's just one of the people always put down about wrestling is that people that don't wrestle is they look at the singlet and say it looks funny. So why not just get rid of it? Why not put something else in that would maybe get some more kids out? So I think I only see positives on that part.
From your perspective, obviously we both came from small schools. Do you think, thinking back to when you were in school, would having a non-singlet option, would that have gotten more kids out there for the sport?
I'm not going to say a lot. Maybe one or two, I would definitely think would. But yeah, it's just, I know I heard that in the hallways a bunch of times from non-wrestlers. They just say this singlet just looks so ugly, and that was just always a put down. So yeah, I think it would help.
I think, obviously the biggest ones are going to be the smaller kids and probably more the upper weights that have more body shaming going on there, to be frank with it. So I could see how it's definitely a good move. Starting to pick up a little more popularity on the national scene. The crazy thing is what do you think of, I don't know if you saw the post that Hager put together today, reached out to some coaches and officials talking about the new rule changes. I mean, did you see that there were some coaches that were against the uniform change?
I read through the first couple
that
were totally against it, so I didn't see what they had to say. But what were they saying about what the negatives were?
Well, that's kind of the thing I don't really get. It's not like, I guess they're probably not being over the top negative, but, I think it was Smith and didn't really seem to think it was, something that obviously he coached at Lisbon and at City High. Kids go out based on the singlet. He thinks, it's not really going to have an impact on numbers. He doesn't think that's going to be an avenue to growth. And I suppose, at a smaller school, when you're looking at uniforms and do you need to have singlets? Should you be buying the fight shorts, compression shot top combo? I'm sure, with all that cost coming into play, that maybe that was something that's kind of weighing on his mind. Like, is this something that we really need to add to our sport? So I just thought it was interesting that there are actually some coaches that, it's not all positive. There are some people saying, like, did we really need this? And kind of like in college wrestling, the 4-point near need it. Was anybody asking for it? It's one of those deals. That's how I'm kind of thinking about it right now.
To me, I kind of compare it to in the majors, how they just got rid of the intentional walk where you don't have to throw 4 pitches. Everyone was saying, it's only going to save 5 seconds on a game. Why does it matter? And it's like, well, yeah, it only saves 5 seconds, but like still 5 seconds. There's no negative. You have to throw 4 less pitches, and it takes less time. So no, it's not. This isn't going to solve all of wrestling's problems, but it's just, to me, it's just not going to hurt at all. So I don't see any negatives.
Yeah, I can't see how it's it's definitely net positive move. So good on the National Federation to add that. The other probably the biggest change then would be they allow near fall and falls to be called outside the circle there. Just off the cuff thoughts about that.
I'm not going to totally trash this one because I want to see how it goes. But, once again, you and I being from small schools, being smaller gyms, smaller mats, I can see there being some issues with this. There's not a lot of room in some of these places. I know down at Bosco, you don't got a lot of room on the sides when you got the teams down there. Another thing, too, that I noticed is in college they do this, but they always have 2 refs. I know you get to some meets and even some tournaments in high school and you don't have 2 refs. So you got when you have 2 refs, you'll have one looking for back points, the other one looking to see if the guy's off the mat or if his feet are still in. Now one guy has to do more things.
Yeah, and this was one of the other things that, Brad Smith, Lisbon, he's obviously been around the sport for a long time, very well respected. So when he kind of talked about this in Tony's post today, that this is what caught my eye. So Smith's quote here is, I don't like the rule of the offensive wrestler getting a fall when both shoulders of the defensive wrestler are out of bounds. The fall in bounds is part of the strategy of winning or losing a duel. If the defensive wrestler is fighting off his back and goes out of bounds, same as always, go back to the center and restart. I just kind of thought that was interesting that it kind of fell into it's in the strategy of the duel of, bridging to get out of bounds. So that's kind of what I took away from it is like, coaches, they're used to working the rule this way, and now they kind of got to find a new avenue with it.
Yeah, that's one thing that will kind of get rid of, I guess, with the rule in there. So that's one kind of positive. And like I said, I'm not totally trashing this. I don't think it's the worst rule ever, but I will be interested to see how it goes in some of these tournaments.
Yeah, and I guess, the mat space will always be the issue, the wrestler safety, but I'd have to think that, if they're putting this rule in place, they kind of got a good feeling that they don't think that'll be too much of it. In today's, I don't want to call our world too crazy about we overhype, safety because it's important, but I feel like in today's age, we're so geared toward that, that I really don't know if it'll be a problem, but like you said, it would be interesting to see it for the first few tournaments. maybe have a better feel by once January, February rolls around, how we really feel about the rule. So other than that, did you see anything like that, like flying squirrel? I don't think you can launch yourself over an opponent anymore. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh man, that was my go-to move in high school. No, not really.
Yeah,
I never did.
Well, the Schares is dead then.
I don't think I've ever seen.
We all know you're full of it. You're full of it. Everyone knows you did the cradle. That's all you did.
I hardly ever cradle.
No. Well, they taught you wrong then. I don't know what you were doing in Bosco if you weren't cradling.
I'm glad the scouting report still isn't out on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we ever have wrestling media duels, I guess that's some advantage you got there, Schares. Looking forward then, obviously the other really big topic we had last week was Cadet State. They also had schoolboy, novice, intermediate. All the younger levels for freestyle Greco-Roman state took place here in Iowa City. Perusing through results, we're probably just going to focus on cadets here for this podcast. That's kind of where the bigger names are. Just kind of better appeal here. Was there anything that right away stood out to you in these brackets, these results?
Not really upset wise, but I just was looking through and I saw cadet 120, and that looked pretty loaded to me, especially for a cadet where it's not always quite as deep, and then also Greco on top of that. Yeah, Cale Hoppel getting first there, but yeah, I mean 1 through 5 where they were all real tough.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger surprises I saw was like Jack Thompson taking second at 113 to Kane Loonsman. That was a little bit, I kind of would have thought Thompson would have came out on top of that bracket. 120 was tough with Happel and Yant. And then 120, I think 126 might have been one of our more deeper brackets. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Who was all at 126? I don't have it up here.
We had there was Colby Shriver, Blake Thompson, Logan James, Chase Loonsman, Ryan Strickland, and Trey Shuck. Quite a few medalists in there for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty deep weight class there. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up here.
I thought I could have swore you were the one that commented after Greco State, but maybe you weren't talking about 26. Maybe you said 20.
I said Greco. I was talking about 120.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was kind of one of the bigger weights, and then obviously Colby Shriver came out on top, taking out Blake Thompson was the second place guy there. So 120 and 126 really impressed me. This cadet, I'm kind of curious to see how this cadet team will do, because I feel like they were a lot stronger, for our cadet dual team out at national duels. Iowa, I think they were in the top 6, I want to say. And, I think there's a lot of good talent, but I think this team, just kind of looking over some of these results, I think last year's cadet team was more experienced. I think this is going to be a younger cadet team for Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going through some of the guys that won it here. Yeah, I mean, you got Shriver, but at the same time, that's not the better one of the two. Yeah, then DeVos, Runyon. Yeah, you got some good names in there. I don't know, I guess I would say, you don't always have your big names because it's cadet, so it's not your juniors and seniors. But, yeah, it's not terrible, but, Illinois always has some really tough teams, so I don't know if they quite have enough to hang with those guys, but should be okay.
And, and another tough weight that I think we're really going to have to watch here is going to be 195 pounds. Gabe Christensen, obviously Southeast Polk was, probably one of the Fisher. He wasn't ranked by us. I don't know if, the other site ranked him. So I'm not quite sure where he stood, but he came in unranked for us, made the finals to 2A at 195, losing to Bryce Esmoil. So he comes out and wins the cadet bracket. Gabe Christensen's actually third behind Braden Wolf of Waverly Shell Rock, who I'm pretty sure Wolf was, I don't know if he was in the finals out at Folkstyle Nationals. So he was definitely a big name out there, though. He's a top finisher out there. So I think 195, usually that's not a weight where you see a lot of depth nationally anyway, but I think we got a couple guys that could be a major player maybe on the Fargo scene later this summer.
Yeah.
Really looked into those results.
Gabe Christensen getting third, he's a tough wrestler. Braden Wolf, there's a guy up in my neck of the woods I've gotten to see quite a few times. He's a little bit younger, so I think he's one of them guys where once he gets older at that weight, he's going to be a lot tougher, and obviously it's kind of starting to show here. And then I know Cody Fisher, looking through some of the results, he was a guy I think I might have even been texting Lars saying, hey, maybe give this guy a look. So, yeah, you got three pretty solid guys up there.
Yeah. So with our live show, sorry here, I know we've been talking a little bit about Cadet State, but I want to circle back. We do this live, so we might as well interact with the fans here. So going to kind of go back to this uniform change. Tony kind of says it best. I mean, people are probably a little concerned about these shirts, these shorts, fingers getting caught, that being a little bit more situation. Do you think that would be an issue?
Well, I can count on 0 hands how many times I feel like that happened in practice. So I don't know why it would be any different in an actual match.
It just seems odd that, all these coaches actually have that concern about, having those caught fingers. I do think that's interesting that obviously they're in there every day at practice, and then for them to kind of come out and say this when, you would think, because I'm kind of on the same boat with you where I don't remember ever breaking my finger, but the fact that it comes up and all these refs, or excuse me, all these coaches should be watching practices and knowing how many of their guys get hurt fingers. So I just kind of wonder where that even really stems from. Is it a resistance to change? Is that what you think it is then?
I think that's 100% what it is. It's just kind of the old boys, you're messing with the cathedral the way it's always been. They don't want to see any change. It's got to be this way because that's how it's always been, and they don't really have another reason for you. I'd like to think I'm always one trying to look at new things, and I just kind of hate the way of thinking of, well, it's this way because that's how it's always been, and that's just how it's always going to be.
And building off this then, you kind of like this change. I see you wearing that Cleveland hat, which I kind of want to slap you for it, but whatever. I'll let it go.
Good luck.
But, yeah, so we got Nick Weber here commenting, and that kind of makes me think, he's talking about putting names on the back, making it kind of like a jersey, giving a kid a Kyle Snyder Ohio State jersey for Christmas. Logan Stieber, James Green, whatever. As a guy that, you're a basketball NBA fan, is that something you think would help actually grow the sport too? Is that, would you see yourself, I know you got a son, would you buy, say a Tony Ramos jersey for him?
Well, you just take a look at these younger guys. I mean, who are they looking up to? They're looking up to, like you said, Tony Ramos, Kyle Snyder. What do they see those guys wearing? Singlets with their names on the back. So again, there's just nothing negative to that. I mean, maybe it costs a little bit more because you have to get it personalized, but as far as getting excitement, there's no negative to that.
But I mean, do you think the market would be there for, a jersey, a fan jersey market for wrestling? Do you think it would actually, is that something? It's obviously not going to be on the same level as baseball, but do you think people would actually buy into it? Would you go to a Carver Hawkeye duel, and do you really think you'd see a ton of people wearing a Thomas Gilman Iowa shirt, with his name on the back?
I think it couldn't hurt. Yeah, I could see that being fairly popular. I wouldn't say high school so much, but yeah, and I mean college, I definitely think I could see that happening.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to get your opinion. I think it would work really well, obviously in Iowa and Penn State, but I don't know how well the market would be, at Edinburgh, at Lock Haven, picking on PA schools, Wyoming. I don't know how many of those guys would sell a jersey. I think that would be the more interesting thing. And then when you see like Real Budo go off or no, it was Palacio that went off there at NCAA's after he beat Kemmer. You know, would that something all of a sudden people want to buy a Spike and Cornell Palacio shirt? I think that would be an interesting thing, and it's obviously something every other sport's been able to capitalize on, but wrestling really. So good stuff from the comments there. Was there anything else from Freestyle Greco State that really stood out to you?
Not really. I'm sure you.
Not really. Yeah, I know.
But no.
You kind of hit it on the head when you said, this is cadets. We're obviously learning a lot about these kids. We'll see. This summer will be where we pretty much find out where their place is, in the state and nationally. Obviously, 88. We talked about Drake Ayala being he's the number for the podcast, but Brandon O'Brien, he's another big name out of Seabolt Wrestling Academy there. I think he's a Limar boy, but he took second. He's been on the schoolboy national team, traveling to Pan Ams, I think the last 2 years. I think he's another name to watch. So just kind of, but as far as, national talent with Cole and Shriver not wrestling there, we kind of lost a lot of our oomph.
Yep.
But anyway, so that was Cadet State. Junior State's coming up this weekend, Southeast Polk High School. Obviously going to be a lot more to disseminate there, especially when you think about the cadets coming up a level. That's where we get some. Brock flipped his commitment Iowa to Co.
What was that again? Sorry, you say Henderson switched to Co.
You see that?
Yeah, I did. Brock Henderson's one of these guys in 1A that might not get a lot. I mean, he gets love because he won state and whatnot, but he's just a guy who he shows up when the lights are on. He's just a real smart wrestler. He learns from the guys he wrestled earlier in the year. So yeah, I think Co is a good place for him. I think he can really do some damage there.
Yeah, it seems like I remember from my time in high school, there's a lot of guys from Northland that went through Co. And I know one of them still kind of helping out with that program there. So when he committed to Upper Iowa, I was pretty shocked. I had him pegged for Co. And obviously I didn't flip him. But so maybe some of that relationship kind of dug into him and made him rethink. But I think one of the things I'm more excited about with Henderson going to Co., we got Brady Kiner from Southeast Warren going to Wartburg. They were obviously the state finals match. It was a pretty good match. Kiner hadn't been taken down all year until that match. Obviously, he was coming off that good match with Gable Fox in the quarters. But, man, I just kind of think that would be something – that'd be fun to have that rivalry continue on into college. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to see that again. And obviously we still can in the future. But, yeah, sometimes people kind of grill these kids for flipping their decision. But you got to remember they're 17, 18 years old. I mean, I couldn't decide anything on my own at that age. So I can't blame a kid for changing where they want to go at all.
Yeah, so. Definitely stupid to blame him. But for anybody out there that thinks that's a bad move or anything, these kids they're deciding for their future. So that best of luck to all those guys. Of course, Gavin Babcock, Southeast Polk, went to Central. No Hughes Riley, West Des Moines Valley committed this last week. So good luck to all those guys committing. I think they're probably some of the last seniors I think we have on our big. I think they're all pretty much decided where they're going. Looking forward to that. The other big news this weekend was Trent, Pennsylvania prep. Took a visit to Iowa. Jacked 174 pounds, might be an 84-pounder. 74 might go up. Is this guy kind of taking you by surprise? Did you really even know who this guy was before he showed up, Eric?
Not really. I saw his name. Was he in UWW Juniors?
There, yeah. I don't know if that was him or his brother.
I think they were both in there. But anyways, yeah, you're kind of the more national high school guy than I am. But anytime you're getting kids out of Pennsylvania, that's pretty good because they're You know, I know Iowa people hate to say it, but when it comes to high school wrestling, they're pretty much king. So any stud you can get out of there to even come visit is definitely a plus.
Yeah, and I think he's legitimately 40 minutes south of State College. So I looked that up today, and I thought that was something that was really incredible. You know, he talked to him today when he said on his visit, you know, he really enjoyed the relationship with the coaches that they have with the wrestlers. He was very impressed by Carver Hawkeye Arena. I know with Sammy Sasso, I think that was early winter that he released the top 5 with Iowa on it. There's been a lot of movement in D1 coaching, so maybe some of that's kind of been shooken up. I'm not sure where Sasso's at, but I mean, if you're trying to land a 1-2 punch, you know, it's always good to have your best friend coming with you. They don't go to the same high school, but you know, and I don't know how close they are, but I think, you know, recruiting them as a package deal wouldn't be a bad deal for Iowa. Get an upper weight guy and a middleweight guy in a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I mean, just anytime you get a kid in there like that, you know, when he goes back for Christmas or whatever, he'll be talking like, oh, hey, you know, I'm at Iowa, I'm liking it quite a bit. It just kind of spreads a little bit from there. So any way in to an area like that, I think it just helps get even more kids. So that'd be great.
For sure. So definitely going to follow that story. Just kind of wanted to put that out there since we put that interview up tonight. Eric, I'm not, you know, there's not a ton of wrestling going on right now. So I think I'm out unless you got anything, like, got any other big Iowa-centered stories. Otherwise, I got one other thing I wanted to throw at you.
No, honestly, not really. I mean, you guys kind of covered the U.S. Open last week. Said there was just a little bit of stuff I could say from that, but it's kind of old news. But no, really nothing Iowa related.
Oh, and I think I figured it out, by the way. I think I was listening to Blood Round, or maybe it was either Blood Round or the Inside Trip there, and they picked Thomas Ellis. I know I gave you – I'll own up to my crap I threw at you last week on that, the U.S. Open. But what I did see was Cliff Fretwell. He shared a post too, and it was from Fox Sports, and they're talking about this new rule, NCAA, and it's mainly based on football because of the guys sitting out of bowl games, and they're talking about maybe allowing for four of the season games, including your bowl game, anybody you got redshirting, you can put them out there in an attempt to, you know, make the bowl game, use it as a cookie. Maybe you could say kind of a treat. You worked hard all year. You know, Leonard Fournette sitting out. We're going to give our 4-star running back that we redshirted a shot. It can help you out during the season. Maybe first game of the year, you're running up the score rather than put out a guy that, you know, he's a senior and he's not going to contribute next year. He's already seen some playing time. Maybe you put out your true freshman. So I just kind of want to throw this at you. You stand on a red shirt, you know. Would you think that would work in wrestling to have a guy say 25% of the meets this year or in tournaments, their points can count for your team?
Okay, so I didn't see what you're talking about. So you're saying like Iowa could have thrown out Marinelli once or twice last year and it wouldn't have burned his red shirt? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. So I'm just throwing out 25% because I think, you know, it's 4 games. I think they play 14 football games. So we'll just call it 25%. Say, when Ohio State rolled to town, maybe we're going to rest you and we're going to put Marinelli out. We're gonna put Carter Happel out for a duel. I mean, what are your thoughts, or do you think, you know, is that just going to create mixing and matching problems that it's probably not worth to go down that rabbit hole?
Now, obviously, like I said, I just saw this, so I haven't put a lot of thought into it. But I would say this is another instance. Yeah. There are really no negatives. You could. Like Iowa this year, they could have thrown out, you know, maybe Marinelli early in the year and seen if he was ready. And then if he's not, you just put him on the bench and wait till next year. But, I think that helps. And then also like there's, so many instances where, say, Ohio State gets their 125-pounder injured or whatever, but they have a guy in redshirt they can throw out there. Instead of just forfeiting, they can put definitely a qualified kid in there. So, yeah, I don't see any negatives to this either.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe you could just help me kind of pick it apart. I literally saw it maybe 20 minutes before we came on air. So, I haven't really put too much deep thought into this either. Obviously, from where we're sitting, we got a pretty easy view. Just when you think about you and I with J.J. Everard getting hurt this year, maybe he could have used Carter Isley, get him some experience so he's ready for the next 4 years. I'm sure Kanan Storr could have used, it could have been fun. Iowa State was struggling, and they didn't really have a lot of excitement going on toward the end of the year, especially when KJ announced he's stepping down. Maybe putting Kanan Storr out there, get some people fired up. They're putting out the guys that are going to be the guys next year. Let's go to this duel. Let's get excited about the future. So, to me, all I could think of were the positives, and mainly that's just because I'm pulling off of examples here in Iowa. So I definitely think it's an interesting the article. Like I said, it's on Fox Sports. I clicked on college football, and it was the top story. And I think it's got a picture of Fournette and the McCaffrey boy from Stanford, if you guys want to look it up, listeners. And the rule committee or whoever's the board that's got to review it, I think it's going to be a whole nother year before it even passed. But this is something that Kerry Colot's talked about, maybe, given just 4 postseasons. So you could wrestle your guys the entire season, really realistically 5 regular seasons and 4 postseasons if you wanted. So just kind of interesting thought that they are trying to expand the red shirts, kind of all I wanted to put out there. We saw it. I like it. I think Eric likes it.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think, like, going back to 2 weeks ago, like Matt kind of said, I think kids nowadays are just more ready when they're coming into college. So, you throw a guy like Marinelli out against a top, 8, 9 guy, kind of see if he can beat this guy, that means he's got a good shot at the podium. And then, the coaches know. So if they get a measuring stick like that, that just makes that decision that much easier.
All right. Well, that's what I had. Sounds like that's what Eric had. We want to, thank everybody for tuning into the live broadcast on Facebook. We'll have this up on podcast. Our man Hager couldn't join us tonight, but he's going to work hard to get that up for anybody. I'm Ross Bartachek signing off with Eric Schares. Thanks, everyone.